Welcome back, everybody. This is, indeed, The Angry Chicken. I'm Garrett Weinzierl. He's Willie Does Gregory. She's Jocelyn Moffat. We're all back. No one's sick, for the most part. It's a great day.
It's a glorious day.
I didn't around, just before the show, I didn't go around the table. I wasn't like, hey, Dills, man, anything? You got like little sniffles? I didn't want to speak for you.
You didn't check in, and I'm feeling a little neglected over here, Garrett.
How you feeling, Dills?
I'm good.
You got some chicken pox?
No,
chicken pox. Okay, good.
I'm good to go. In fact, that would be weird if I suddenly developed adult chicken pox.
It would probably really suck because I hear it's really bad the older you get.
Yeah, apparently.
It's a really weird way to start the show.
You were sick last week, so we're glad you're back, Jocelyn. You were missed.
I am glad
you have chicken pox?
I did not have chicken pox.
All right.
I don't think, unless chicken pox suddenly just migrated to just throats. Is that a thing that happened? Did it evolve? Then no, I did not have chicken pox.
Did you have chicken noodle soup to feel better?
No, I can't have noodles.
She just downed maple syrup.
Oh,
no, I can't have maple syrup either. I can have whiskey.
Actually, I was going to say, actually, downing maple syrup with a sore throat, that would probably feel pretty damn good.
Yeah, no, just lots of
maple syrup is not part of your diet anymore?
No.
And they still allow you to live in Canada?
It's basically just sugar.
All right. I don't think they would just kick you out at that point. It'd be like, get oot! I really accentuated.
You really did. They keep coming to the door, and I keep just like hiding and pretending I'm not home. And they're Canadian, so they're really polite about it, and they won't actually come in.
We'll come back later, okay?
Exactly. Sorry to bother you.
You're making me drop things.
Oh man, Jocelyn gets sick. Canadian fan fiction.
So good, so good. Welcome to the Angry Chicken. I promise this podcast is about Hearthstone.
I'm done with the try-harding portion of my Hearthstone month, so I'm also done with the try-harding podcasting Hearthstone month.
Sweet, I'm all for it.
We'll pick it up again next week.
So Jocelyn, since you were out last week, I got to ask, how you liking Puzzle Labs?
I have played more of Puzzle Labs than I've played Ladder in the last couple of weeks. I am enjoying it way more than I thought I was going to, and way more than I have enjoyed single-player Hearthstone content, I think, possibly ever. I really like that I don't have to go in and like make decks like I used to have to for adventures. And I really like how it doesn't feel RNG focused the way that the like Monster Hunt stuff did. It's like you just go in, your cards are your cards, and you have to figure out in some cases, very challenging Hearthstone game states. And it's been really fun and interesting to me.
That has been basically my experience as well. Because you know me, usually I'm like, single player, who cares? And I have been really pleasantly surprised with it in terms of like how it stacks up to other single player versus things like dungeon runs or old school adventures. I think I agree with you. I would say I think my out the gate enjoyment of dungeon runs was higher. Like it was almost like it redlined and then immediately kind of fell off. Whereas like my extended enjoyment with Puzzle Labs is definitely the best, I think, of any solo player content that they've done in this game.
Yeah, and I've always been like, ever since I was a kid, I've always really liked like logic puzzles and stuff like that. So it's also really nice to just like to know that the solution is in there somewhere. Because like, I mean, when you're playing a game of Hearthstone, sometimes you get into these sort of situations, but like knowing that there actually is a way to win, or there is a way to do the thing that you're trying to do, and not just like, oh, I hope that I can actually get this done. Like it just knowing that there is a solution to that puzzle, it just like ramps my enjoyment like up to 100. It's just, I'm really, really enjoying it. It's right up my alley. And I'm kind of sad that it feels like they didn't kind of hype it as much as they did with like Dungeon Run. I don't know. At least that was my kind of like perception, is it was just kind of this thing that we knew was coming, and it was like, oh yeah, there'll be new puzzles. So yeah, that's a thing. Yeah, it'll come later. Whereas like Dungeon Run, I felt like it was like, bam, right in our faces. Like this is the point of Kobolds and Catacombs is Dungeon Run.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't think they hyped it as much either. Although I'm not sure how much hype they could have done that would have gotten me excited. Like, I wasn't excited about this until I started playing it. Like, I went from one puzzle to the next, and before I knew it, I'm like, damn, I'm really enjoying this. And the other point, you probably have such a good point, which I didn't really think of, which is you're right. Like, you're just sitting there looking at a board state, knowing there's an answer. And that is, you don't feel that ever in Hearthstone. There's always a what if. Like, well, maybe not always. Sometimes it's very obvious lines of play, but like more often than not, you're not sure if if you'd made the right call. Whereas you're looking at these puzzles and you're like, yeah, if I'm intelligent about this, I can solve this.
Unless it involves patrons, because I'm sorry, but as soon as I get to the point where patrons are involved, I'm like, I can't figure this out. I'm moving on to the next thing.
But, yeah, generally what you can do is if it's like something like that, you just kind of go, all right, let's play the cards in this order. Oh, that didn't work. Okay, let's play the cards in this order. Oh, that didn't work. Okay, let's play the cards in this order. And
well, the further along that you get, though, the more like random don't actually fit into the solution cards they give you.
Mm-hmm. That's true, but
which is also something I like, that there's like red herrings in there, and it's like, oh, this feels like the way that I should do it. And then by the time you actually solve it, you're like, whoa, I was way off when I started. That had nothing to do with it.
My favorite feeling right now is, oh my God, I really overthought that. When you're just like, oh, it's a 2-card combo and I win. Okay, I'm a moron. I didn't need to get fancy.
Yeah.
Don't get fancy, I think, is my number one puzzle lab tip I would give everybody. You know what else we didn't talk about last week is puzzle lab guides. And I would just like to get on a soapbox for a second and say, that's silly. You're doing it wrong.
I can
I'm going to get on my soapbox and say that's silly to tell people how they should do it. If you don't care, you just want the card back. Yeah, go do the guides. But you are missing out. But some people don't care. You know what I mean?
I'm having some fun here, Dills.
Sure. but I mean, I hear people, like people are like getting on other people's, like, why are you watching people stream it? Now you just know the thing. It's like, everyone's settled down.
Oh, I'm not going that far.
Game experience, you know what I mean? Let them do it how they want.
There's like 120 something puzzles. If you can like watch a streamer stream 120 puzzles and then go into your game and remember every single solution. Cool.
But you solved them in another weird, Rain Man style way. But
exactly, like that level of like photographic memory just blows my mind. So if you can do that, that's your own special set of skills. Like, way to go.
Yeah, and this is so much fun to watch people stream. I would never come down on anyone for watching someone stream this stuff because it's fun to watch people get confused. It's so entertaining.
Sure. It's to me though, I did watch some people on the first day, and then I was like, oh no, I want to figure these out. I don't want to like have a clue into what it is, so I immediately like turned it off. I will say that for the content that it is, it's you're gonna complete it and then you're never gonna return to it, right? Whereas something like dungeon runs, if you really loved it, it's something that is replayable. There's no replayability to this, but that's, I think, if they're not offering incremental rewards for this stuff, they make it unreplayable. Yes, because then I just do it, I get the card back, I'm done. The other stuff felt like they wanted me to go back in and do it over and over again. And this I think is the right way to do the single player stuff. Is give me a thing where I complete a puzzle and then I'm done and then I'm back to playing the game.
And you can. Like I said, there's over 120 puzzles. Like that is a huge chunk of content. Like even if you go in, load it in, and do every single one of them in one shot somehow, then like you're still looking at, if it takes you a minute each, that's 2 hours of content. Like that is a ton of content. Yeah. And I think it's totally fine that it's not replayable. Like I think I've probably played like 6 or 8 hours of puzzle mode altogether. Like I've really, really enjoyed it, and I've gotten really stuck, and I've been on the same thing for like an hour, but I feel like I just need to keep going at it because like the sense of accomplishment I get when I actually do figure it out is huge. It's like the biggest sense of accomplishment I've ever had in Hearthstone ever. It's awesome. So there's so much there that I think that's probably the key. If it had been not replayable and like only as many challenges as say like adventures, like if they only gave us like 20 or 30 challenges, I don't think it would have been as successful as the current version of puzzle mode is. Like the just sheer volume of puzzles, I think, is awesome and is perfect. It's like, it's something I feel like I want to do, but not something I feel like I have to do. And it's because I keep like going to it and like coming back to it and stuff like that to try to come at it with like fresh eyes and fresh ideas. It's like, that makes it last longer to me, I guess, if that makes sense. Like, I don't need something to be repeatable to make it be good content. Like, just give me a lot of it and I'll get to it when I can get to it.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I'm in the same boat. I just think it's just really good. They knocked it out of the park. I think there's enough of it, whether it's for playable or not. I don't know. This is my favorite single player addition to the game.
And I feel like if this was just the way that Hearthstone did single player from now on, if like every time a new expansion came out, it just came out with puzzle mode, I'd be totally fine with that. And I feel like that's the first time in the, like, since we've been getting single player experiences that I felt like that. Like, I liked adventures. They were pretty cool. Then I didn't like Dungeon Run all that much. And now we've kind of hit on something that I really, really, really enjoy. And if this was just the way Hearthstone single player was, I'd be totally fine with it. Like, just keep doing this, Blizz.
Yeah, I'm with you. Although I feel like at a certain point, I mean, you wouldn't completely run out of puzzles because new cards are being added, but I feel like at a certain point they would have to start adding more unique obstacles, because there are puzzles that have cards and things on the board that are not scenarios you ever run into out into the actual game. Personally, I found myself...
I love the mirror one where you... organize your minions on the board based on the health that they have and I think it's like in one of the priest challenges for the mirror stuff. Is so cool. It's such a cool concept. I'm just like, yes, make more like cool puzzle specific cards. Sure.
I was going to say, me personally, I actually find myself preferring the ones that are all playable, potential scenarios you may actually find yourself in one day. Not that like I completely hate the custom stuff. I just didn't like it as much. Although I think I just did the one called Hot Potato. That was fun.
The mirror one is certainly takes you outside the box of conventional Hearthstone thinking, right? Because there's these weird extra cards like organize the minions by health, and you're like, okay, well, I have to damage them in this certain order and then reorganize them and then heal them, and so it takes you to a completely different place in Hearthstone than like the lethal puzzle, where I feel like the lethal puzzle I just burned right through because it's just something my brain has been trained over years of playing Hearthstone to kind of look for things. Right?
Oh, that's a good point.
You'll have to teach me how to do the patron one then, because I was always too off.
Patron one. I don't remember the patron one now, but
it's once you get down to like the Dr. Boot. Like, so I finished.
Oh, I haven't done the bosses yet.
Oh,
I've only done the 4 at the top. I haven't even touched the bosses.
So
I did all
I did
4
the
of the buttons, and then I've done only like maybe the first 2 of the rest of the buttons.
Yeah, so I got all the way down. I was trying the boss, and that was one of the ones I was stuck on for like an hour. And it's like patrons and give your minions charge and a frothing berserker and a couple of weapons and stuff. And everything's got a Thorason tick on it. And oh my God, I'm always like 2 off. And I'm just so frustrated. And I'm like, there's got to be a way.
Gotta find 2 more damage.
Yeah, stupid sludge belter.
usually like the other cool thing is you're right that it is usually very logical. So if you get to a point where you're like, okay, I'm 2 off, where can I eke out 2 more damage? And you just start to kind of think about it that way. You're like, well, I need 1 more minion to run into 1 more minion at some point, I guess. Or I need 1 more minion to play board when I whirlwind, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I'm like one mana or 1 board position in 2 different potential solves that I tried. And I was just like, oh my God, I'm so close. I can taste it, but I just can't do it.
Question. Do you think they're training our brains for some new type of card effect?
I think that would be amazing.
Like,
but probably, I don't know. It's everything's possible, right? Like the more expansions we get, the crazier things go. So like, oh my God, what if it was like mirror the board state, kill the enemy hero?
I mean, that would be insane. You'd have to lock that behind something like extremely high cost mana, because like, what if, it's turn 1? Well, I played a 1/1. He played a 1/1. Game's over.
Well, no, but not just a 1/1. Like they would have to be like the same 1/1s.
Oh well, that would just I probably never see play, because how could you guarantee? Well, right now, I don't know. Giggling Inventor, you just slap that down, and they're probably going to slap down a Giggling Inventor, and you're good to go. But I feel like over the course of the majority of Hearthstone, the chances that you're going to have the exact same board and the exact same minions as your opponent, pretty slim.
Which is why maybe it's balanced.
Maybe. It's also maybe why I won't see play. I don't know. But yeah, I don't know. Some of these, that's where my brain starts to go. It's like, ooh, what are you testing, Team 5? I feel like a lab rat, and I'm not getting any cheese. Actually, I am getting some cheese.
There's a lot of cheese.
Yeah, actually, it's pretty tasty cheese, and it's called Puzzle Lab. It sounds like all three of us recommend you play it if you've been avoiding it. Take it from the three people who usually are like, Brawl, meh.
I'm usually pretty down on basically everything that isn't ladder, because ladder has always been my happy fun place, and now Puzzle Labs is my happy fun place, and I don't even think I've gotten past rank 5 yet this month, because I've just been Puzzle Lab.
Well, before we get into news this week, let's thank our patrons supporting us over at patreon.com/TOC. If you enjoy the Angry Chicken, if you thought to yourself, boy, those three are really fun, or maybe you can just, maybe you really like Dills and Jocelyn and you can't stand me, we would still appreciate it if you go over to patreon.com/TAC. Jocelyn's just nodding in agreement. Like, yeah, I think that's about 90% of the Angry Chicken listenership. It's just, they're here for me and Dills. But that's the best way to support the show. We split it between the three of us. I don't know if you knew this, but quite a while ago, three of us quit our full-time jobs to pursue podcasting, and this Patreon helps us out a ton. We'd like to thank some of our more recent patrons. Thank you to Steve T and Scott S. Or C. Letters are hard.
There were a lot of S's in the names this week.
There were. They're both S names. Steve and Scott. But thank you both for supporting the Angry Chicken. Now, let's see what Ixar had to say at Gamescom.
Good news, everyone!
It was a pretty quiet Hearthstone news week, and then Gamescom happened, and Tice was streaming, and Ixar crashed it, and just started chatting up a storm, and there's a lot of interesting tidbits in here.
Yeah, I wish they'd let him off the leash more often.
but bro it off the leash used to be a joke we made on the show. Can we just cut Ixar's leash permanently? Like, just get rid of it, please. Thank you. But he hung out with Tice on a.
He still seemed fairly leashed to me, but he is.
Well, yeah.
I mean, but relaxed. I would say relaxed for sure. But when you get to this all seemed like there was somebody over his shoulder going, yeah, you're allowed to say that. Yeah, you're allowed to say that. Don't say that.
Well, that's fine. Fine. Put him in front of a camera and have someone over his shoulder more often, I guess, is what I'm saying.
It was still like comparatively to like what we usually hear 3 weeks after an expansion. Like, this is a lot of information, right?
Yeah.
So.
I feel like it felt less like canned PR speak. Like there's some questions that we ask, and I feel like we've heard the answers 100 times, and they're very not satisfying and very much like, okay, yeah, you're reading from the same script that we heard 6 months ago. Like, can we move on now? And there's a lot of stuff in here, even like little things like the timetable for design and the way that they play and stuff. Like, that's the kind of like little tidbit details that we don't normally get. So it felt a little bit less rehearsed, might be a good word.
That's definitely true.
Yeah.
Yep. So I don't know. There's so many places we could start. Let's start with Quest Rogue, because Quest Rogue got brought up, as well as polarized matchups. And first up, Ixar confirmed that Quest Rogue is really popular right now. He didn't give exact numbers, but he did say he's been keeping his eye on it. And right before he left for Gamescom, he checked the internal statistics, and he can confirm it is, in his words, very, very popular.
It's actually, according to HS Replay, the most popular Rogue deck right now. Like, even more than Odd Rogue.
I played a bit of it after your suggestion last week, Dills, and I will say it is very fun. But when you go up against an Odd Rogue, it really feels like you don't have a chance in hell.
That is a tough matchup for sure. But I've also heard from some people saying that they were beating. So some people, like, the way that it is now actually has a chance that people were beating like Zoo and Odd Rogue without getting the quest done in certain situations, which is something that it could never have done before. It is still a horrible matchup, but HS Replay has it as a 30-70 matchup against Odd Rogue, which there's no way it would ever have been that close in its previous incarnations. Right?
What do you think is causing that, by the way? I want to pull this thread. Do you think it's because of the
inventor?
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a good point. I was going to say, I think it's because we have to play the same game like 5 times now. There's even more low-cost junk.
Well, so Giggling Inventor, Sonya, and Zola, I think, bring it more into... You can Giggling and then Sonya or Zola the Giggling and play multiple Gigglings and things like that. So it gives you a lot more power to just kind of stop things. And then obviously Vicious Scalehide gives you the ability to heal back up a little bit. So yeah, it just, right now it just has a lot of tools that it didn't used to have. Vanish, Giggling, Glacial Shard, Vicious Scalehide. Like these, when it first hit Quest Rogue, it was like make a lot of flame elementals. Remember that?
Yeah.
The flame elementals don't defend your face at all. So
No.
yeah. Now you're talking like wax elementals. Like, yeah, it's just it's the minion base more than the actual, because we lost Gadgets and Fairy.
Oh yeah, Ferryman.
Yeah, the Ferryman. Yeah.
I think we might be losing Dills.
I was gonna say, I think we definitely lost Dills.
Damn it, he was in the middle of such a good point. The internet. I guess now is as good a time as ever to warn that there is an insane thunderstorm now overhead, so I may lose power without warning, which means the entire stream will die.
Awesome.
Yeah.
There is construction outside my house because they are tearing up the entire road and burying a whole bunch of stuff. So my power has been going off and on randomly, as well as my internet, as they cut and move cables. So
rough day at TAC HQ. You back, Dills?
Oh man, did I cut off there?
You did.
Yeah, Dills is back.
did. The last thing we heard you talk about was the Ferryman.
So they lost the bounce effect, but they gained the giggles. So
I did gain the giggles. And for those of you at home updating your Angry Chicken drinking game, please don't add giggles to it. It's going to be a long season, and I want our listeners to survive. We're going to say giggles a lot. Get used to it.
I was going to say, does it just count when we say giggles, or does it count when I giggle? Because either way, whew, it's a rough drinking game.
All forms of giggles.
See?
Just get rid of it. Get rid of it. Don't put that on the game. We want you to live. Live, damn it. Anyway, on the topic of polarized matchups, which came up in the talk about Quest Rogue, Ixar basically said, hey, because of card games, polarized matchups are going to happen. And then he got more specific, saying that if there were a lot of like 90 to 10% matchups, like old Control Warrior, Freeze Mage, that's where they do not want it to be. Like they consider that a problem. He did say statistically overall right now, most of the matchups do not exceed 70-30. He did concede that 30 is really low, but not impossible to win. And this is what I'm feeling right now with the Quest Rogue versus Odd Rogue matchup.
Yeah, I was facing a ton of Odd Rogue too last night, and I was trying to play semi-fun decks, but I was at rank 3, and it's the end of the season, and that's where people just go, okay, the aggro deck. I'm trying to get to Legend as quickly as possible, so I was definitely realizing how friggin' strong and fast that deck is right now, and it punishes anything that's trying to set up like a mid-range type of plan.
Yeah.
Which is, it just kind of means like you just have to put Giggling Inventor into every single deck you play. Otherwise, you're going to die to them. Right?
Yeah. And I this has kind of been my issue since the expansion came out. I was not going up against Odd Rogues since really Boomsday launched. I saw a few here and there at the very beginning from the people who are try-harding. They don't want to learn something. They want to continue to climb. No judgment. I've been playing mostly Zoo because I want to climb. And so I've thought to myself, oh, it's going to be safe to try Quest Rogue. First 3 matchups, all Odd Rogue. And I'm just like, this is Hearthstone. This is what I'm currently pretty down on with the game.
If you get to like a ranked floor or something like that, sure. But yeah, there's I don't know. It's funny because every single time an expansion comes around, we go, "Is this going to be the slow one?" And then everyone's like, "No, aggro is still."
Yep.
I still just beat your face in.
Yeah, there's not a lot of aggro decks, so it feels like it's mostly Odd Rogue kind of keeping everyone else in check and also keeping all those inventors in decks.
So Odd Rogue, Tempo Mage, which is kind of, it starts with some tempo and then it switches into an aggro burn thing.
Yeah.
and Zoo are we consider to be like the fastest decks right now. Hunter,
and they're all really good, right?
Yeah,
and
they're all top
yeah.
tier. Hunter is now like a mid-range deck, like a kind of a mid-rangey combo deck with its death rattly stuff or spell. It's like it's not really aggro anymore. It's so funny because I see posts where people are like, still referring to like the Hunter smork thing, and it's like they don't really smork anymore.
I know. It's so sad.
Yeah, it's like, what was the last Hunter you saw on ladder?
Yeah, it's not. They're not playing Wolf Rider, man. They're playing 0-3s. So yeah, it's right now we're kind of waiting on, I think, a shift, and I think at the beginning of the season we will start to see it a little bit, but some of the control decks might start to come back in, push some of that Zoo Odd Rogue down. Then that's when Quest Rogue like rises, right? So it's going to be cyclical. I think there's a lot. Like there aren't a lot of polarizing matchups, but there's a lot of rock paper scissors that can go on in this meta right now.
Yeah, it's kind of how I've been feeling, but it's the nature of the beast. Speaking of Giggling Inventor, that also got brought up. Tice basically asked, "Hey, did you expect it to be this strong?" And Ixar's response was not quite, but that they did intentionally design it to be strong. And then gave the example of strong neutral taunt minions over the history of Hearthstone, specifically things like Sledge Belcher and Tar Creeper, which saw a lot of play across a lot of different decks. And in his words, he thinks, taunt minions in the mid game make games more interesting because it, forces minion combat and also forces you to change up your plan.
I do think like Giggling Inventor is a useful tool to have in the neutral toolbox.
Well, it lets people not get run over by all of that crazy aggro we were just talking about. It's nice to have like a pause button in the middle of the game if you're actually trying to do something cool.
Yeah. The thing is you have to have a follow-up for it. And some classes have a really good follow-up and some classes don't, right? So, if you're Warlock and then you go into like a Defile, it's like an amazing follow-up to Giggling Inventor, right? Because you've softened up quite a lot of their minions and things like that. I think right now the issue is that there's so many minions. Like right now, these aggro decks that are out there currently, it used to be that aggro would like kind of run out of steam, right? And now it kind of feels like they don't. Warlock just taps, and we know that, and that's fine. That's why Zoo's always been a thing. But it's not necessarily an aggro deck. Like Hunter at a certain point would be like, I draw one card and I hero power you each time. Now with what Odd Rogue does, playing that dagger is like playing a card. So it's almost like every 2 turns they just have drawn another card, right? Because they're playing this 2/2 dagger and they get so much utility out of it that they're not playing the cards out of hand as fast. They're not dumping their hand onto the board where then when you wipe it once, they suddenly are out of steam. It's like they dagger plus this, and then next turn it's hit with my dagger, re-dagger. I got another dagger and 1 card. And, it's like they just keep building on that where you look up and you're like, man, they've been beating my face in for 6 turns and they still have 4 cards.
Yeah.
Like,
how is this fair?
Out of steam? Yeah. But that's just not how aggro is these days. So it's kind of interesting. You really do feel like you need massive tools to stop it. And some classes just don't have those, right?
Yeah. I want to go back to Giggling Inventor for just a second, and that's because an email that I saw and didn't add to today's show popped into my brain, and I was able to pull it up so I can give credit. It's from Michael F., who wrote into tacpodcast@gmail.com. I brought up in defense of Giggling Inventor that it, in his mind, it is basically a neutral spreading play.
Sure. Yeah, you could say that. Although you can also just play it onto an empty board. I don't think it's too strong. I just think because of how popular it is, that's why they're going to be looking at it, right?
Right. That's
like we talked about last week. It's not too strong as a card.
Yeah, that's what you and I were getting on last week as well. It's like I don't think anyone here is being like, yeah, it's overpowered. It's just that there's a little much of it in the meta.
In fact, I would I like more cool cards.
I don't know why they aren't looking at Cube just as much, because I feel like the same problem. Like any deck can make some really super powerful things happen and you have to balance around it. It's neutral. I feel like Giggling Inventor and Cube should be in the same bucket.
I'm starting
There's not even close to the percentage of decks though. Like,
yeah.
I mean, I know that you feel that way, Jocelyn, but when you look at the data, Giggling Inventor is in like over 35% of decks, and I'm scrolling. I haven't seen Cube. Not even on the first page.
Cube was in that many decks though last expansion for sure.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
I don't know if it ever got there, but you're right. It was popular at a certain point. I think it's you can't just throw Cube into any deck, right? Like Cube has to have a thing you want to cube. Mm-hmm. And when you cube something, you actually lose tempo the turn you cube. Whereas giggling is always just going to be giggling, right? Like you just 5 mana, I just play it, and almost any deck could just throw it in. But like Cube, they're talking. Dwakta and Merps were talking about it on Lightforge, that it's like a really bad arena card because you can't build around it, right? So the turn you cube, you actually like have killed your own minion and played a 4/6 for 5, and then like I kill you because you killed your own minion, thinking, oh, next turn I'm going to get some sweet thing happening. So it's like, it's like they're not. Like I see what you're saying, but they're just not quite in the same ballpark as far as like any deck can play this. Right?
Well, and I look at Cube as an example of caution against knee-jerk reactions, because even I was here screaming that the sky is falling because I was so sick of seeing it, and as soon as Boomsday hit, I have barely seen a single Cube since.
No, Cube Lock is literally not even close
not competitive anymore. Yeah,
it's like people still play it. It's just, I think it's just people who don't have new cards.
Yeah.
I'm actually curious where Cube is in 10% of decks right now, apparently, which that seems odd to me, because I would think it'd be closer to like 15 or something, just because there's 2 versions of Death Rattle that are viable. But wow, only 10%. Interesting.
Not that I would be sad if they had dinged Cube a bit, but yeah, it's I don't know, it's interesting. And he didn't say that they're doing anything to Giggling Adventure, so it might go the same way.
They're watching it.
Yeah, keeping an eye on it. So,
and this would be the one card I would expect them to be watching, because 35%. We're talking Novice Engineer levels, right? When it was a 1/2.
I was thinking heal bots. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
No, I mean, Novice Engineer at its height was the card that was just in every single deck, right? Every single deck was like, yeah, I could play a 2-mana 1/2 that draws me a card.
Why stop there, man? Go back to beta. Freaking Tinkmaster Overspark.
Sure.
Keep going. Yeah, I think what we've landed on is that in the history of Hearthstone, there's been more than one problematic, extremely popular neutral card. Azure Drake.
And again, and they said at the time of nerfing Novice, like, this card isn't too strong. It's just that every single deck just throws it in,
Yep.
It's like the card itself doesn't win you the game on turn 2. It's just like, why do we want a card that every single person plays?
What are you talking about?
You guys remember like the big whatever, the big 12 cards or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Every single deck ran them.
I don't know what you're talking about, Dills. I would drop my Novice Engineer and people would just concede. That's how I won Hearthstone.
They're like, oh god, a 1/2 on 2.
How do I screw cards? Game's over. Card advantage.
If Novice was a 1/2 now, I bet people would still just play Keleseth.
It depends on the deck. I think
Sure.
Plenty of decks would find a home for a 1/2 Novice Engineer, but not Zoo.
But right now, like, there's just not enough good 2-drops that people are like, nah, just Keleseth.
Pretty
Skip
much.
turn 2.
They also talked about Wild, and how to balance it. A question came up. Do they look at Wild balance, which was a little silly, but also into that question was Psych Melon is going crazy. Do we need more hate cards? And Ixar said that they're spending a lot of time thinking about how Wild should be, like what the goal is for Wild. And he said that right now Wild is like a curated version of Standard, but just has all of the cards. Should Wild eventually be turned into a place where sometimes you get turn 3 OTKs with 100 minions? Some people like that. And they like modes that are wildly different, but right now that's not the direction that the team has been going with Wild. So they're not sure, is basically his answer.
Yeah, Psych Melon is really good in one particular style of deck, which is obviously like this combo Druid. That being said, when you look at its deck win rate is not crazy. Would they look at the data in a much more analytical way than we do as players, because we just feel it, right? We're like, man, when they play Psych Mill and then they kill me, that feels bad. But they look at it and they go, yeah, but people play Psych Mill and then lose too. So, it is it is a card that has enabled some craziness. Like, I love my Starliner Druid. I think it's so fun. But you can also still just get beat down by an aggro deck there too. So I'm kind of okay with it. I feel like they did look at Wild. I feel like it is kind of in an okay spot right now. I think there's a lot of interesting decks you can build. Just we get to a point, I think, where players kind of, I don't want to call it lazy, but like once we get a few decks, everyone just kind of settles in on those, right? And a lot of the innovators kind of, I don't know. There are still those innovators out there. They're not as prevalent, right? So,
well, yeah, because I feel like, and this kind of goes back to just the problem with Wild in general, with it not having anything that's equivalent to like HCT points and not feeding into that system at all, is that anyone who is trying to be super competitive in Hearthstone, then Standard is the place to be because that's where the money is. Yeah. So if that's where the money is, then that's where the innovation is going to come. And people who are doing it in Wild are innovating for the fun of it. Like,
yeah.
So, I mean, that's always kind of going to come secondary to where the money is. It's just how things work. So until
they're either streamers or they're just people who just love Wild, right? And actually, I think we should try to get some Wild representation on the show at some point because it is an interesting mindset, and I've talked to some people about it, and it is hard to find the motivation. I think some of them they're trying to organize some of these Wild players and figure out a way to match what HCT is for Standard.
Mm-hmm. But that's really hard to do without the company's support, right? Like right now, all of Team 5 Blizzard Hearthstone money is going into HCT tour stops and the whole Hearthstone master system and everything else that's happening in esports, and none of that is being funneled over to Wild. Like, if we get 1 or 2 Wild tournaments a year, is that really enough to push the innovation on the Wild side? I don't think so. So
it is kind of crazy. Like, they're like, hey, here's 5 things for Standard.
Yeah.
Wild, oh yeah, we'll throw you a freaking bone every now and
then. There's too much Standard to watch. Like, maybe cut down on some of that and cut up is not a
Wild
thing.
Tour stops instead of instead of 50 Standard tour stops.
Yeah.
Maybe 30 of those and 20 Wild ones.
That would make me a lot more interested in watching professional Hearthstone with more frequency.
Yeah.
I would just love to see them kind of think outside the box the way that the Warcraft team did with the MDI. I don't know exactly what that looks like, but like no one really thought people would want to watch other people run dungeons, but it's ridiculously entertaining. Mm-hmm. So like, I think that they should be looking at different ways to kind of market Hearthstone esports and different ways to compete. And I think Wild is a huge part of that, and they should be pushing it. And I think it's nice to see them say, we don't really know what Wild should be, and be kind of open about that, because I think the community that plays Wild can definitely feel it. So it's kind of nice to hear from Blizzard saying like, guys, we're sorry, but we're not really sure what direction we want to take this. So
I think they should hold a Wild Summit, bring in the top Wild streamers, talk to them, get their thoughts.
Yeah.
That'd be a good place to start. Unless they already have and it's a secret and nobody knows about it. Which is also a possibility. But again, this is one of the quotes like where they're basically admitting that we're thinking about it, we're not sure. These are our thoughts, that like this is the kind of stuff I want to see more out of the team. I want to see where their head is at, whether it's carved in stone or not.
Yeah.
I find this kind of stuff
I just like this because it very much feels like they were just like, okay, well, this grew out of us needing Standard, but we didn't really give too much thought as to what that would mean for the other thing, which is Wild, right?
Yep. Trying to talk in between thunder. I don't know if that's coming through.
Oh, it totally is.
Oh, wonderful.
I thought you were dropping things.
I got disconnected again. I don't know why it keeps happening, but sorry about that. I do want to just also point out that one thing that Wild also brings to, say, a competitive type of situation and something for people to watch is it allows cards that can't see play in Standard to exist. Like Starliner is a thing in Wild. And when that card comes out, a lot of people look at that and go, what in the world? And then suddenly you see it being used super effectively in Wild. And that's really cool, So plus there's a lot of strategies that now just don't exist in Standard anymore. You can't really mill people the same way. I mean, yes, there are people doing togwaggly stuff, but think about when you still have Cold Light Oracle as a tool, right? And what that kind of brings back in. So
I keep forgetting, and this is on me for not playing enough Wild. I keep forgetting that Hall of Fame cards are Wild playable.
Yeah,
I feel like
they're still over there, man.
like Hall of Fame is just to me like out of the game.
Sure. You'd
Like
be
more
surprised,
so
though,
even than the rotated sets. I just feel like no one's allowed to play with Ice Block anymore.
not that many of those Hall of Fame cards do see a lot of play, but it's funny is the most popular card currently in Wild is Bran Bronzebeard. That's like the card that just like won't go away because it's a cool effect. By the way, the top 3, actually top 10 cards in Wild. You got Nourish, Wild Growth, Swipe, Branching Paths, Spreading Flag.
F you, Druids.
Those are in there. So yeah, out of the top 10 cards, like half of them are Druid cards.
Well, and that's what I think they're getting at. Like when you were saying, yeah, it's like Melon, that deck isn't that powerful. So they're looking at everything. They were looking at the percentage that this deck is getting played over the whole population of Wild and everything
Druid,
else.
Man. Too much Druid.
Good old Druid. Speaking of Druid, Ixar spoke to Druid. And also brought up like other stat websites. He said that people look at data all the time now and mentioned HS Replay and Vicious Syndicate. And he said that the data is showing that Druid is not the most popular and definitely not the most powerful. And I found this interesting because he didn't say, and the stats are way off. They are really powerful.
Right.
So to me, I take this as like, cool. I think our stat sites are probably pretty in line with what they're seeing internally. If Ixar's not, unless, I don't know, maybe he's just being really nice and didn't want to tear down fan sites, but... I
think the issue again is they're not too powerful. It's just that they're too homogenous, right? They're too similar, and you don't know what kind of freaking Druid you're playing until the end. And now at this point, too, I was playing as the guy the other day who was playing Togwaggle and Malagos. It's just like, hey, one of these will work.
Yeah.
You can't.
Well, that's the thing.
out.
They kind of have like a core 20 that lets them ramp and live forever. And then they just stack their win condition on top of those 20 cards. And it could be anything late game. You really don't know. So I liked the point that he made later on when talking about how it's not necessarily some of the cards that Druid has been given, like Infestation, Plague, all that kind of stuff. It's more the cards that their class is built around, like their mana ramp in Nourish and Wild Growth. Like I remember when we first started, like when Hearthstone esports was first starting to be a thing and we were first covering all this stuff, it's like you nourished 4 cards all the time. And the first person to like nourish for mana in a tournament was like, whoa, what are you even doing? Like, how is this going to work? And it's like they have so many tools now that it's like, you nourish for mana, just period, all the time, because you can survive forever and you've got so much late game that you just want to get to. Like, I want to see them somehow return the choice to cards like that. Like, you want to ramp, cool, but like make it so it's a choice instead of just like you do the mana thing. And so it was nice to see them say like, these mana ramp cards are actually probably the problem, and the things that we've done with like the 3/1 that gives you the empty mana crystal and like stuff like that is probably a better design than straight up like here's a card that just gives you more mana, period.
Yeah, and actually the project card I think is the healthier way to be introducing fresh ramp, right? Because we're like Wild Growth, Nourish, if those aren't going away, we don't need more.
Yeah.
We can just stop there forever and ever, and Druid will always still be ramping.
Yeah. Or just straight up retire them. Just give us a new ramp, a new balanced ramp. Yeah, a new balanced ramp with each expansion, but get rid of Nourish or get rid of Wild Growth. I feel like getting rid of Wild Growth would totally be fine, because if you can't ramp until turn 5, and then your turn 5 is a choice, and the rest of the cards in your class give you a valid choice either way, like, because that's the problem. Like when UI came in, you didn't have to worry about not having your late game cards anymore. That's why you could just ramp, because UI then let you draw. So they've created a problem, and I don't know if rotation will do it or if Hall of Fame will do it. But yeah, these cards are everything about Druid is just too samey now.
I mean, there's a solid argument for UI rotating in 2019. It's going to deflate the sales a bit on ramp because it just makes it so safe. But yeah, I don't know. There's so many as you pointed out, there's so many avenues. And I could also see a hesitation that if you remove the early game ramp from a Druid, like a hesitation or a concern that if you don't hit the mark with what you give them instead, that it might just be a class that falls off a cliff.
That is definitely an issue. But I think like what you just brought up with the UI is a huge thing too, and the fact that the reason why they're always choosing ramp now is because they not only have UI, which you got to clear your hand to be able to play. So you don't want to draw 3 cards on turn 5, even if at the point you might need them, because not only might you draw into UI, but you might draw into branching paths. You might draw into ferocious howl. Like there's so many ways to draw that it's just not correct to ever use it as draw anymore. It's it's a 5-mana ramp card now.
Yeah.
You know, it's because of how many other tools they have as far as draw is concerned.
Yeah.
But you're right, Garrett. Like if they got rid of Wild Growth tomorrow, Druid might just be literally unplayable. Right?
Maybe. Like that's what I could see.
I don't know. Yeah. Like we don't have a deck without it. Like go out and make a Druid deck without Wild Growth right now. See how well you do.
Hey, Angry Chicken listeners, we need a big sample size. I would like everybody to go build Druid decks with no Wild Growth. I want 100,000 games logged by next Tuesday so that we have something to look at. Please and
I need
thank
solid stats.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. And then there's also the like I don't want to invoke like Soul of the Card or anything like that. But what do you want Druid to be? Because when I first got into Hearthstone in the beta and I'm looking at Druid, I'm like, sweet, it's green from Magic. I'm gonna just play big giant monsters over and over again, and it's not really what I'm doing. And I would like to do that, and that requires ramp. So I don't know.
There is a viable big Druid deck right now, but it's still just not as good as. It's not as good as Malagos or Togwaggle.
Yeah.
And people in chat are saying Spiteful is still good. Spiteful is nowhere near as good as those other two. So it is still a viable deck. I mean, Druid has literally like 6 archetypes right now that you can play.
Yeah.
It's just that there are 2 that are very clearly at the top of the mountain.
Yep. And just one last shot before we stop talking about Druid. Just kill Spreading Plague. We're going soft on it. I hate that card. Murder it dead. I'm done with Spreading Plague.
Although because Giggling Inventor is so popular now, the same tech that deals with Giggling Inventor also deals with Spreading Plague. So just Mossy Horror.
If you're running Mossy Horror, then yeah. But then they do it again, and then you're like, damn it.
Yeah. But at least they were always going to do it twice anyways.
Sure.
At least you had a one card.
At least you killed
answer.
one of them.
Yeah, at least you killed one wave.
I think it's okay. I think it can stay as is until 2019 when it rotates to Wild. But
people are asking about Token Druid. Token Druid runs Wild Growth. FYI. Chat.
Yep. Because it's Druid. It's Druid. Wild Growth tells you nothing.
At least the most popular version of Token Druid. There is a non-token or a non-Wild Growth Token Druid, but it's just almost non-existent.
Yep. Indeed. Talking about design timetable, you mentioned that Ixar was talking about this earlier, Jocelyn, when we first got started. He said that initial design is set on August 2019 for set 15. So I mean that means it's starting, right? Initial design.
So yeah, initial design is the start of like it goes initial into final, and so basically they're saying that they're working a year ahead, right?
Yeah.
So,
initial design is like the big picture, like what's the theme of the set, which characters go into it, and they're not nailing down like, oh, it's a 4-mana 5/3, whatever, right? Like that's kind of what that means. But that means that they're in August 2019 set. Okay.
Yeah.
A long way ahead.
Yeah, and final is in April, which means that our last set of this year is already
just done.
Is done. Yeah.
It's basically like being play tested and making sure bugs aren't there and stuff. That's
Chalky is just sitting there trying to break it. Which we got interesting info about that. They said that like internally they have a time scale that they can tweak with so that players like Chalky and Reels internally can play at 4 times speed. He also said the game looks terrible in this mode.
I really want to see a tournament that utilizes this or that puts like Nosdormu rules on everybody so that it's like just constant super fast play is required regardless of what deck that you choose.
Speed
I
Hearthstone.
feel like that would be so much fun. Yeah, Speed Hearthstone, exactly.
Speed Hearthstone, go. And I want them to have a button they have to hit to pass it back to me, like a physical button.
That'd be great.
Yep. And that was all. He was talking about this gauntlet, that he put new decks through a gauntlet of the best current decks to see how they fare. And that's when they kind of utilize that 4 times play speed to just try and find issues. Like APM Priest, for example. It came up in this talk with Ixar, and he said not only did the team know about the deck before launch, but they just don't consider it a major concern. They said it was really popular, like early on at the launch of Boomsday, like 5 to 10% within the population, but that it remains not very good and very difficult to play.
Yeah, it was popular because of Dog and Disguised Toast and people, and look at how cool this thing is. You can always kill somebody if you can do it fast enough. And then its win rate was like 22% because everybody sucks at it.
Yeah.
Yep.
But I still think it's going to be something that they're going to have to watch. I'm sticking by that. I think it could potentially be problematic the more people learn how to play that one combo turn. But
I think if
I could be wrong. I could be wrong.
I'm with you,
in
but
Conquest though it'll only ever win one game. So I don't know. Like I feel like it's counterable. It's a counterable strategy.
Yeah, I'm with you, but in pro play, I don't see this ever becoming a big enough issue for us playing at home.
Mm-hmm.
I just think we're not all that fast.
I am in pro esports.
Yeah,
mindset.
but I don't mind if it's really good in pro play because it's a very entertaining thing to watch. And, it's like I would much rather have something that's super skill testing and really hard be insanely powerful in pro play rather than Yogg, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like I think we're going down the right path. Like, okay, you're amazing at this. You deserve to win. Cool. You get one game every round because you're really, really good at this one deck. But like you watch Dog, who's like, he finds the ability to do the lethal and all these crazy situations, but then he also just loses with the deck because the deck is required to like cycle, and then it just dies sometimes too. So it's got a counter. I think we're good.
Now you bring up a good point. Something I really haven't thought about, but like, you watch Hearthstone and the quality of the play, especially with some of the best highlights from the history of Hearthstone's esports, are unlike what we see at home, but the archetypes and the matchups a lot of time more or less match up with what we're used to, and that's something I'm not used to in other esports that I enjoy. Like I watch Heroes of the Storm and I see compositions and I see execution that is on a whole nother planet from what I understand from my games at home. And it would be kind of, you're right, I think I'm with you, Dills. It'd be kind of cool if I tune into a Hearthstone tournament, I'm like, yeah, I can't do this at home. I can't even attempt it. I'm not this good.
Sure. Like think about StarCraft and stuff too. It's like there's no way that I ever cheese somebody out in StarCraft the way that these guys do, where like they're killing people with 2 units, but they're just insane with the micro and all that kind of stuff. I would enjoy watching and just and have a conversation, be like, who's the best APM Priest player, and there's like a competition and a discussion.
It'd be a StarCraft player, clearly. Like, Boxer came out of retirement and he's killing Hearthstone. Yeah. And what I'm not saying,
with my 30 APM, I'm just never going to attempt this.
No, I'm not even. I haven't even logged a single game with that. No, I'm like, I know that I don't want to do that. Like, I don't even.
That is not my Hearthstone.
You can slow it down. Give me a 5-minute turn where I could, crunch the numbers each thing. I still don't want to do it. I don't want to think that much.
Give me a Matrix bullet time. Someone go dig up Marine King from StarCraft 2 because his like Marine box selecting and micro is amazing. I feel like he'd be really good at APM Priest because it's all mouse micro.
Mm-hmm.
But Dills, you did bring up a good point though, talking about like pro competitive play and how they get 1 win per round, which I think is fine if you're talking about Conquest. I think the problems come in though in Last Hero Standing, right? Like if this becomes a thing that you can reliably pull off, then you could win a Last Hero Standing tournament with just Priest all the time.
Yeah, but you could do that that's been a thing forever. I mean, there's always been a class that's like, you could Q block your way to a Last Hero Standing win. I would much rather see you have to like masterfully get through my 5 taunt board, every single time you had to do it, rather than masterfully draw Skull of the Minari onto
Fair enough.
Yeah, imagine the like, just think about, Jocelyn, the chance for errors with this deck if you had to play it that much. If we had to see that many players play that many games with this deck, we don't see errors in Pro Hearthstone that often. It's not that often that we're like, oh yeah, that was completely wrong. He totally messed up. Also kind of exciting in my head.
Yeah, I kind of feel bad for when if this does start to occur, which we haven't seen it really yet. If this does start to occur, I feel bad for the casting crew. He's like, okay, so what he has to do is he has to do it this many times. He has to do it exactly like this, and they're trying to figure it out as fast as the player is.
Yeah, they're gonna have to start hiring auctioneers to cast Hearthstone.
Yeah.
Really, what I'm hoping for here is I want a supercut of all of the APM Priest misplays from professional tournaments, and the only way I'm going to get that is if it's a top tier deck and it goes into a last hero standing tournament. So
we'll see if it does. It still hasn't made it. We'll see.
You've really brought me around to your side on this, Stills. The more I think about this, it sounds very fun. Outside of APM Priest, Death Knights and hero cards came up. Ixar considers DKs a success. He thinks the community agrees. I think we agree overall.
Yeah.
Despite, I'm last week I was talking about how I'm a little winded with the Druid Death Knight. I feel like I've seen it enough times, but
that's how I feel about Gul'dan.
Yeah, well, it's the three big ones: the Malfurion, Gul'dan, and Rexxar. Like, I'm kind of done, but again, it's kind of in that spreading plague block for me, where it's like I'm kind of over it, but I think it's okay to just wait until 2019 when it rotates out.
For me, it's like I feel like some of them were a really big success. Some of them see way too much play. Like I think Malfurion, Gul'dan, and Rexxar just they kind of like, because they're so powerful, they do fit in every deck for those classes, and that's probably not good or healthy. Versus like I really enjoy the design of Uther, but he just wasn't really supported enough. And I really, really like the design. I think probably Jaina is my favorite out of all of the Death Knights. Like, she enables a certain style of play, but like you don't play her in like an aggro tempo deck. You play her in a big late game heal a whole bunch and, board control-y type of a style of play, which I really like. That it enables some things, but isn't always an auto include.
Yeah.
So I think there were some successes and some failures with the DKs, but overall, like I really, really like the replacing a hero power idea.
Yeah, I'm with them. He did say future hero cards will most likely not have as much potential to generate infinite resources, things like Rexxar. He did concede that Hagatha and Boom kind of lean into that wheelhouse, but they're not as bad of an offender as Rexxar is.
Yeah, Rexxar, now that they are expanding his beast pool all the time, he's going to be problematic potentially.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's just better than all the other Death Knights when you get there, right? So
Yeah.
I played a match where I was playing Super Control Warrior, and I was Dr. Boom. Like, he Rexxar'd on 6, I Dr. Boomed on 6, I coined into it. And it's like, oh, well, Dr. Boom's supposedly amazing. And I'm like, yeah, but he's making a giant minion every turn. And sometimes I'm dealing 1 damage to his board.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'm discovering a Ziliax, but sometimes I'm just getting 7 armor that I can't do anything with. You know what I mean? It's like, I just can't compete with that, right?
Yeah.
So if there's some Death Knights that just completely outshine others in that way, it's going to be a problem. Yeah.
But again, we're halfway through the year. They're not going to be here that much longer. So I don't think I have no desire to start a campaign to deal with Death Knights.
No. Right now, I really like Rexxar. I think it's a super cool and fun card, and I'll be glad when its time is up too.
Yep. Mm-hmm. I will miss Jaina.
Its time will never be up in Wild, though.
That's true. Yeah.
Are they? We need to get Ixar or somebody on the show. Hey, Team 5, if you're listening, will you continue adding new beasts to Rexxar when he's in Wild? I hope the answer is yes.
That is the question.
I want that.
I feel like you kind of have to.
Yeah, it'd have to a certain extent,
Can
right?
you imagine like a decade's worth of beasts being added to this game? Like, Rexxar's just going to be just ridiculous. You will have no idea what the hell is going to come out of a zombie beast.
Well, and that's kind of maybe the balance and almost like a nerf over time, right? Is the bigger the pools get, the less reliable he becomes.
That's true.
Yeah. And also in standard, when you get to Rexxar, the other deck is not maybe just going to kill you like instantly, right? Whereas in Wild, like, cool, I got to my Rexxar, but also you're about to like starline me, so.
You think we'll ever see another card like that too, by the way? I don't think so, where they're going to have to continually update its pool of cards based on what gets added to the game.
Well, all Discover cards are kind of like that, right? Because
Sure,
they
yeah.
always pull from the pool in which you're using them. So when you use a Discover card in Wild, it pulls from all standard and all Wild cards.
Yeah. This is something about Rexar where it seems like they have to do it by hand, whereas other Discover, it seems like it just works. I'm basing that on nothing.
Because they have to combine the two cards.
It's double Discover,
Yeah.
and then they also have to create essentially a version of the card that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
That you created. Yeah, exactly. It's not just a collectible card that goes into your hand.
Yeah, good point. Anyways, this is just the highlights. There's Ixar covered even more in his talk with Tice on stream. You can watch the VOD on Twitch. There's a link up on the Hearthstone subreddit right now. The highlights were posted by user Z Hong. Thanks for that. Made this job a lot easier. So go check it out. There's a link in the show notes. Head on over to amove.tv and look for the episode 278 post. Before we move into crazy game stories, we have a sponsor to thank for today's episode. HelloFresh. They're back. Hey, you guys like eating, right?
It's pretty good.
It is.
Yeah, I enjoy it quite a bit, actually. Maybe a little too much sometimes.
Me too. Except, like, I used to not like it as much when I would cook.
Yeah, I liked to order in. That was my favorite kind of eating.
I like
to put food in my face, but not necessarily to make the food that goes.
Well, I don't like to go get it and then make it. You know, I do like making it. I just don't like to go to the store and figure out all the things I need.
Well, I used to only prefer when someone else would make my food because when I made it, it didn't taste very good and it didn't look very good.
That was also an issue I had for a long time.
But HelloFresh, they fix all of that. They fix it. I have been a HelloFresh subscriber for almost a year now. I don't want to go back to the old way of doing things. My food shows up on my door in a box, labeled. In some cases prepared to the point where I don't need to do almost anything. If you got a knife and some oil, you're good. Oh, and the heating instrument is usually recommended.
They are hot meals generally.
Yes, but it's great. I've really had a good time with HelloFresh. I've been completely converted. You can feel confident. I was not a good cook. I probably am still not. Like if someone just like threw me a bunch of random ingredients and was like, "Hey, make something," I'd just be like, "But where's the step-by-step instructions, including pictures?" Because that's what HelloFresh gives me. Yeah, and my stuff comes out looking like the picture and tasting good. I love it. It's great. And then, also, I mean, right now, school's back in session. HelloFresh wants all the busy moms and dads out there to know they have you covered. Dinner just got a lot easier thanks to HelloFresh. They take the guesswork out of your week-to-week meals, and that means, you know where I'm taking this, more time for Hearthstone. More time for Hearthstone, because you just cooked a great tasting meal quickly.
More time to reach dad legends.
Yep.
Exactly. Or mom
That's
legend.
where I live.
Dad or mom legend, or aunt or uncle, or whatever family title you wear proudly. But on top of that, like they have dinner to lunch menu items. Next week, there's one for chicken and pesto pasta for dinner. And you also make a chicken caprese wrap for lunch the next day. I love these things. They're super convenient, and they stop me from snacking like a total pig in the middle of the day because they actually fill me up. So I really dig it. It's simple and convenient. If you're really busy, every week there's a 20-minute meal option on the classic menu. So you could probably find 20 minutes to make a meal. I save that for Thursday nights when I'm really, really busy. And there's something for everyone. You can do the classic plan. You can do the veggie plan. They also have a family plan. And like I said, I don't want to go back to the old way of doing things. It's great to be a subscriber. The food shows right up to your door. You don't need to plan ahead. So go check them out. Visit HelloFresh.com/TAC60. That's TAC60. And you will get a total of $60 off. That's $20 off of your first 3 boxes by going to HelloFresh.com/TAC60 and entering the code TAC60. It's basically like getting free meals, like 6 free meals with that discount. So we thank them for that promotion. We thank you all for going to HelloFresh.com/TAC60. Why can't I say 60 today? And using the code TAC60. Bam. I can say giggling 70 times, but 60 is eluding me. Anyways, let's crack open the mailbag and take a crazy game story.
Is the whole world gone crazy?
You're in trouble now.
You got it!
How long are we doing this show? I still think that yell just goes on a little longer every time. The audio file hasn't been changed, so I know that can't be true. But anyways, you can send your crazy game stories to tacpodcast@gmail.com. Jocelyn, who is our story from this week?
Our story comes to us from Hey Tallman, who says, "Greetings, Tech Crew. Today I played what was possibly my most buck-wild match in Hearthstone in the 2 years or so that I've been playing. I queued into a Warlock with my big spell mage, preparing to clean up yet again another zoo. However, once turn 4 or 5 rolled around, my opponent dropped a Galvanizer, and my heart sank. There's no way I can deal with Mecha'thun in this deck. So I continue to play while trying to drain my opponent of resources as much as I could. And after playing Luna's Pocket Galaxy, I found my Lich King overcome by Doomguards. Alana's dragons were shot down by Lord Godfrey, and finally, Cindergrosa and her frozen champions were overcome by Hellfire. However, from the thawing ice came a chance at salvation as Chameleos entered my hand. I dealt with the pressure for as long as I could, managing to clear away their full board revived demons from Gul'dan. I have to find something good to play as Chameleos. Finally, I see my chance. It was Demonic Project. With no other real chance at winning, I delighted to see Mecha'thun pulled from my opponent's hand and turned into a Nether Soul Buster. Breathing a sigh of relief,
Ooh.
I knew the battle was still far from over, as Gul'dan was slowly sapping my life every turn. We both run our decks out, as Skull of Minari pulls a giant 10/10 Azari the Devourer. So with the last breath from Pyros, the giant demon is slain, but I'm left with no board and only a few cards in hand. With my last card doubling Imp, which I'd gotten from the earlier Demonic Project, I attacked my opponent with all I have left. I pass the turn and find I had overcome the inevitable. They take 5 damage from fatigue and explode, and I'm left dumbfounded as to how lucky I had just gotten. Mecha'thun is easy to beat. You just need to hit it with Demonic Project you got after rolling Chameleos from a frozen champion."
So my question is,
So easy, anyone could do it.
who is this stupid noob you're playing that's running Demonic Project in his own Mecha'thun deck? What?
Hey, man.
Against all the other combos on ladder right now?
What? No. You're playing Mecha'thun. You don't play Demonic Project too. Oh, God. All right, we need to have a chat with whoever this gentleman is you're playing against.
Dills, you told me not to judge people for how they play Puzzle Lab, even if they cheat and look up all that.
Man. That's, yeah. No, don't play Mecha'thun and put Demonic Project in
Don't tell me where to put my Demonic Project. I'll put my Demonic Project where I want.
You just expect to lose to Chameleos pulled off of Cindergosa. All right.
Yeah. Duh.
Or to your own friggin' Demonic Project.
I like to think that the previous game, the opponent had this exact same win scenario happen by his own Demonic Project. And
he didn't have Mecha'thun in hand, and he like Demonic Project a Malagos or something, and went, haha, this is the best tech that no one else uses. I'm so smart.
You can get away with it because it's the Blood Bloom Cataclysm, so you can just decide not to play it. It's a dead card, but still, you should just probably be running something you can.
You should probably be running a card you want to play.
Yeah, that's weird.
It's good. Well, keep those crazy game stories coming. tacpodcast@gmail.com. We have another sponsor to thank today before we wrap the show up with some emails, and that is Robinhood. They are our latest sponsor. If you missed the last episode where we talked about Robinhood, it is an investing app that lets you buy and sell stocks, ETFs, options, and cryptos, all commission-free. And their whole goal is to a non-intimidating way for stock market newcomers to invest for the first time with confidence. And as I mentioned last time, and I will mention it again, that's me. I don't do stock market stuff usually. And they contacted us for the Angry Chicken. They're like, here, try this out. I'm like, oh, I don't know. I'm kind of scared. It's fine. It's such a gorgeous interface. It's very easy to navigate. They have tons of charts and data that you can take a look at, and I can actually read and understand, and that's saying something. It's not a thing I'm good at. So check them out. Go to angrychicken.robinhood.com. Dills, you've been using this as well.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of cool things about it because not only is it stock market access, it's cryptocurrency access, which was something I had always heard about but never really felt like I had an in. like, or an understanding of what the hell
It
that
seems
actually
like a
was.
whole weird like
Yeah, it's
world.
the thing
that is-
I don't
yeah.
do, right? But then I got the app and I was like, okay. And then the other cool feature about the UI is like, yeah, there's a lot of like you can go in and do a lot of research. There's also like a live chat going on, kind of about whatever thing you're looking at, right? So you can go in and just kind of read what other people think, you know, if you don't know. And I don't know, I really like, you know, as a Reddit user, I like to hear like lots of opinions and then kind of take them all in and make decisions. So yeah, it was pretty sweet. I was very surprised at how unintimidated I was by the whole thing.
Yeah. Again, like there's no commission fee. Other brokerages charge up to $10 for every trade. Robinhood does not charge commission fees. And again, I got to harp on the interface. It's so good. The design and the ease of use is top notch. If nothing else, go to angrychicken.com or angrychicken.robinhood.com and just check it out. Take a look, install the app on your phone, just plink around. And if you like what you see, what? Plink is making you giggle?
Plink?
Plink?
Yeah, I think that's the
Blink
official
around.
term for stock investing.
I was going to say it's the official term for my finger poking phones. You know,
Plink, plink, plink.
You know what? It kind of feels to me like I'm playing a little online game on my phone now too. Whereas like I used to always just open up like a Pokemon thing or something.
I mean,
like,
I would
can
not
just open it up and plink around. You know?
maybe be careful what you plink on.
Well,
but-
I was
I'm
going to
not
say
gonna-
it. You got to be careful
I'm
when
not
you
gonna
plink.
spend. Well, okay. Think about how some people spend money on like The Simpsons with the donuts and stuff. Like, I'd rather spend it on somewhere I can get some of it back.
Is
maybe.
that what you're getting at, Dills? Anyways, go to angrychicken.robinhood.com. They also have an offer for our listeners. If you go to that link, they are giving listeners a free stock like Apple, Ford, Sprint to help build your portfolio. You can sign up just by going to angrychicken.robinhood.com. We appreciate Robinhood for their support of the Angry Chicken, and we appreciate you all using that URL. Now, we're going to wrap this up with an email or two. If the bumper plays.
Hello?
There it is.
Hello, it's me.
Hello.
Just quickly, do you get my message?
Yep.
Oh,
Hello, brother.
I think my tablet is starting to get a little too slow to be my soundboard. Send your emails to tacpodcast@gmail.com. Birdie from the UK kicks us off this week and says, "Greetings, KFC Survivors Anonymous." Good. It's good. I would like to thank you for recommending the pre-Boomsday Death Rattle Hunter, as I just hit Legend with it last month. So, like Dills, as a Legend player, I would like to convey my thoughts on the climb and what Blizzard could do to improve it. I think the worst thing about the ladder system is the inability to properly prepare for the deck you are about to face. I think Magic Arena already has the answer, and that answer is best of 3 with a sideboard. I'm just going to take a minute and say, my man. Birdie knows what I like. Couldn't you just imagine it? Queuing into Zulok and being able to tech against it. Queuing into Mali Druid and teching against that. Do you think adding a best of 3 mode would improve the overall gameplay experience? Are adding too many new permanent modes bad for the game? Are we all wondering why we can't challenge friends in arena decks? All right, now you're pandering to me. You are pandering to me, Birdie, and it worked. You made it on the show.
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and throw. I know like some of the stuff you cut out in here is because we don't have a lot of time. But I played. I did a sponsored playthrough of MTG Arena the other day, and there's a lot of cool things in there that I think could work well in Hearthstone, and this being one of them, obviously. Because if you think about it, they're teching against you while you're teching against them, right? So that makes for a very interesting second game and potentially third game. But the other thing that they do, which I think would be super cool for Hearthstone, is if when you do what they call just quick play, which is not the competitive ladder play where you just play one game against the guy, if you have a free-to-play deck, they match you against other people with free-to-play decks.
Dude,
Wow.
I did
Yeah.
not know that. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's just like that one little thing right there just was like, yes, this is what we need in Hearthstone, right? We need the ability to like start the game out and not feel like there's no way to compete, right? And I think some people just have that feeling. So there's a lot of things that they could take from MTG Arena. I think it's got some cool ideas going on.
I mean, it has a ton of
I thought
modes.
that they said, I feel like it was a Broad interview or something. Like 8 months ago ish, give or take, that was talking about how like low level new player ladder experience and how they either were looking into using the collection as a way to help
They
with
were
match.
looking into what they
Oh,
do
okay.
now currently, that at least that I'm aware of, is the first few games you play against other people who are playing their first few games, but at a certain point, like, that just goes away. And you're
Right,
just
yeah.
based on,
But
like,
I thought that they were talking specifically not just about like your experience in the game and how
Yeah.
many matches you played, but also like specifically looking at like collection size
Yeah.
and collection quality.
And I think, you could go just based on collection, or you could just go based on what the deck is and like how many legend or how many like high win rate cards are in it, I guess is what, because if you're just starting out and you're playing basic Druid, and then you go up against, Malagos Druid at rank 25, that's really frustrating. You might just turn the game off and never play it again. So
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, the answer to his questions at the end, do I think adding a best of 3 mode would improve the overall gameplay experience? Yes. Or adding too many permanent new modes bad for the game? No. Are wondering why we can't challenge friends with arena decks? Yes. And we've been wondering all of these things for a very long time.
Yeah, I think the biggest kind of question here really is about splitting the player base. And to be honest, I mean, I feel like a lot of Blizzard games are very focused on how can they make the queue times as short as possible. And sometimes that results in, bad matchmaking, or, it just like the idea of splitting the player base comes out of that wanting a short queue. I would much rather queue a little bit longer and then have more options and ways to play Hearthstone. Like I find like arena really isn't that interesting to me. It just doesn't appeal to me. It's not a way that I like to play the game. So my options are very much limited to now puzzle mode, which I've been playing a lot of, but I don't really play Brawl either because I think it's kind of silly and not really that rewarding after the first win. So like if I had more ways to play, I probably would play a lot more Hearthstone. So I don't see why. Like if the trade-off for me is going to be I have a longer queue when I want to queue into ladder because people are off playing another mode, I'm kind of okay with that. Like the queues are that fast that sometimes I can't even push the cancel button if I've decided I actually don't want to play. Like, oh no, I have to go pee. Damn it, I can't even cancel this game. Like it happens so fast.
Yeah.
Then I'm like, now I'm stuck here for hopefully not 20 minutes because that's going to be a problem. So like I would trade that super duper fast queue for something that's like a minute long. Sure, why not?
Yeah, because we are talking about Hearthstone. We are talking about the most successful online card game of all time. We are talking about tens of millions of players playing this game. So I don't buy that argument anymore. I never bought it, and now I'm just impatient and cranky about it.
Midnight Bomber in the chat room is saying he had a 3-minute queue time on Wild Ladder at rank 1 the other day.
yeah, as you rank up in Wild, but again, this problem could be fixed by making Wild more competitive of a mode.
Right, yeah, like we talked about
Incentivizing
earlier
wild
with
play.
incentivizing some innovation by rewarding players monetarily somehow through some sort of HCT system for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot there. We're having this discussion in Heroes a lot. Again, it's mostly, especially on the U.S. server, a conversation that really only affects the upper echelon of players and then Team League at certain points in the season. But that is a game with a much smaller player base that has more modes than Hearthstone and is still finding a way to work it. So, I don't know. It's these are all things I want, and. I don't know. It feels a little bit doom and gloom, but there's a ebb and flow to the whole. Do you want a longer queue for more modes, or do you want less modes and the shortest queue possible? I think there's at least a somewhat cynical argument to be made that if Hearthstone does not change and add enough, the player base will start to get smaller anyway, and you'll be left
we'll get
with
the longer queues anyways,
and not enough modes. Exactly.
Yeah.
That's more of the cynical view, but I think it's worth bringing up. So, anyways, thank you for your email, Birdie. Dills, who's next?
Let's see. The next one is from Connor, who says, Greetings, KFC survive. Whoa, what?
2 in a row.
Another KFC reference today.
What? All right.
Did they just come out with like an angry chicken, like spicy chicken sandwich or something like
yeah,
that?
something happened.
Something definitely happened.
So anyway, my name is Connor, and I've been playing Hearthstone since beta. I've played relatively consistency, but have taken breaks during stale and tilting metas, Quest Rogue. Recently, I hit Legend for the first time. As satisfying as this felt, I now feel a lack of purpose or goal within Hearthstone. What are some things you recommend doing to keep the game engaging after finally hitting Legend? Well, that's tough because for a lot of players, that's the goal. And then once you do it, you got the card back. Now what? So if you need this carrot dangled in front of you and the game itself isn't the fun, then it's hard for me to tell you. Like, I would just say, like, play a deck that you just enjoy playing, not a deck that you feel you need to play to go up ranks.
To
right?
rank up, yeah.
It's just like, it's not necessarily something that's going to be obvious once you get that last carrot. And it sounds like that was the last carrot for this guy. So,
well, and there are other, like, calling them carrots is it's a great way to think about them. There's other carrots in Hearthstone. I mean, there are card backs associated with the heroic adventures, which some of them are a lot easier now that we have a much bigger card pool to play with. So you could go back and do some of that single player content. You could try to get your 500 wins on all your different classes if that's something you haven't done yet. You can go for your 12 wins in Arena. That's a thing that you could do. So, like, there are other carrots in the game, but getting Legend on the standard ladder is definitely, for all the reasons we mentioned with competitive Hearthstone earlier, it's kind of the carrot. But there is still also a wild ladder. And again, I really think that there should, at bare minimum, be 2 different card backs, one for standard and one for wild for hitting Legend. But until that's in the game, you could still, for your own satisfaction purposes, go and get Legend on another ladder. That is a thing that you could do as well. So there are some carrots. It depends. If this is the very last thing left for you to do in Hearthstone, then yeah, like Dill said, you're going to have to find the fun. You're going to have to find a deck that is just fun for you to play for fun's sake.
Yeah, and the other thing too, though, is getting Legend each month. Now that you've reached it, you'll go only to rank 4.
Right.
So
the more doable.
The grind is not going to be as much, and you can just be like, okay, the goal is now get Legend again, get Legend again, get Legend.
Yeah,
again.
go for a streak. See how many months in a row you can do it.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's just, I don't know. It seems a lot more enjoyable to me to start the season that much higher and just be like, okay, I don't have that far to climb. Like I kind of neglected it for a little while, so I went back down to like 8 or 9 or something like that. And I'm finally kind of back into that groove where it's like, okay, this is not that far away. I can probably get it each time.
I can do a couple of ranks.
Yeah, like if I really want to grind on it and play the best deck. So, but then I mean, also getting the Legend means you can just play whatever meme thing you want because you never lose Legend. So,
Got to set your own goals. Just get 8 HCT points. That's what you should go for, man. Just keep climbing.
Yeah, start earning more HCT points. I mean, you get 1 just for getting Legend. So now just try to get like 10. See if you can get to 10.
Yeah, man, you got an HCT point. How cool is that? If it was a physical thing, I would frame it and hang it on the wall.
It's pretty neat.
Yep. Joss, who's our final email from?
Final email comes to us from Anthony, who says, "Hey guys, huge fan of the show. You guys are the reason I came back for Witchwood and have been completely lapsed after being completely lapsed since BlackRock. My question for you guys is, how do you decide which quote unquote top deck to run when you're having bad luck with multiple? For example, I'm trying to climb but keep getting stuck between 14 2-star. I thought he meant he kept getting stuck between rank 14 and rank 2, and I was like, that's a really big range to get stuck in. But between rank 14 2-stars and 13 1-star, and have tried Odd Mech Pally, Heal Zoo, Odd Rogue, and the new Tempo Mage, all for a good amount of time each. Should I just pick one and stick with it? Thanks for the quality shows week in, week out. You make my long hour drives home on Tuesday nights far more bearable. So I feel like we've talked about this quite a lot. And the decks that you've listed here, Odd Pally, Heal, Zoolock, Odd Rogue, Tempo Mage, all fall in the same sort of category. They're all really aggressive type decks. So if you're finding with aggressive decks that you're hitting a wall and you keep bouncing between these couple of ranks and getting stuck, then maybe just changing to a different deck. Like, they're all really viable. They're all really good. So just changing from Odd Rogue to Tempo Mage isn't really changing your playstyle at all. That's not getting you over the hump. That's not getting you around the strategy that's beating you. Whereas, like, if you're looking at changing a deck, you should probably change to something that is a totally different strategy to counter whatever it is that's really punishing your aggression.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think the issue here is that you're not changing based on the meta. You're just changing to another deck, just to be a different deck, right? And what you have to do is kind of pay attention, like, okay, what am I playing against a lot? It sounds like maybe you're facing a lot of control decks that are wiping out your aggro decks, so you might need to switch to some sort of a combo-oriented deck that punishes control, right?
Again, like we talked about earlier, that whole idea of rock, paper, scissors. So it's like you're losing with rock to a whole bunch of paper, and instead of changing to scissors, you're going rock,
Switching
rock, rock will win.
yeah. Like, but what if I use rock with my left hand? Like,
what if I use a different color rock?
Gotta switch to paper or scissors. And you know, I had this problem the other night. I was like, oh, I've heard Tempo Mage is a really good deck right now, and I played it, and I faced 7 Death Rattle Hunters out of the 15 games I played. And Death Rattle Hunter, if you can't figure it out, is a horrible matchup for me. Because they have a 1-mana spell that they don't care if they cast. They have several 1-mana spells. They don't care if they cast to counter my counter spell. And then they also have these Death Rattle minions that literally counter my other big secret, which, you know, deals 6 damage to a minion and the rest of face. Because they just play an egg into it and get a free 5/5, right? And I was just like bashing my head against them, trying to beat them, and it was really difficult. So I was like, okay, this is not a good meta call if this is what I'm going to be facing. Is you have to kind of then make the call. It's like, if I'm going to beat this particular deck that I'm seeing a lot of, I have to then change my deck based on that, not just, okay, well, let me switch to Odd Rogue now, right? Because then I'll still probably get beat by a bunch of 5/5s and 7/7s at some point.
Yeah, so you can't just kind of like move down the tier list. You really need to take into account what your play style and win condition is. And if you're switching from one deck to another with the same play style and the same win condition, you're still going to lose those games. Probably also, 7 times out of 10.
The meta will change from, like, if you're, you know, at rank 14 and then you move up to rank 12, the meta will actually just be different at rank 12. You know, so as you're moving up, you got to pay attention to the kind of subtleties of what you're starting to face more.
Yeah. The other thing I like about switching decks, and specifically archetypes, like moving into combo or control or something of that nature, is get out of your comfort zone. It is going to force you to start thinking about the game in a different way. And that can help get you out of the rut, because you're going to see patterns and plays that you weren't thinking of otherwise.
There's definitely something to be said about like switching to, or at least whether you're doing it on ladder or not, but just playing the decks that you find super frustrating to play against so that you understand your opponent's strategy a little bit better. Like, if you're constantly just playing aggressive decks and you don't really understand how control decks work and what their weaknesses might be, then you're going to have an even tougher time in those matchups, right? Because you just don't understand the way that a control player thinks or the way that a control deck plays. So branch out, I think, is also really, really good advice.
So thank you, everybody, for your emails. Keep them coming. tacpodcast@gmail.com. That's going to wrap it up for this episode of The Angry Chicken. Thank you again to our patrons. If you want to support the podcast, head on over to patreon.com/TAC. Another great way to help the show out is to drop us a 5-star review on iTunes. If you like the show, it helps us find new listeners. Huge thanks to our producers, Declan H., Sean C., Johnny S., and LVE. Thank you for the support, gentlemen. We also have swag available. You can get Angry Chicken t-shirts over at shirts.amove.tv. We have custom etched glassware, things like pint glasses and whatnot. Check that out over at etched.amove.tv. Other than that, around the table before we go, Dills, where can everybody find your work?
Check me out on Twitter. I'm at Willie Dills, and twitch.tv/Willie Dills is where you can find me streaming the Hearthstone. I'll be streaming the next couple days, and then I'll be working a bit before the new season. So gonna probably give up on trying to do anything of note this season and just play fun meme decks. So if that interests you, come check me out there.
Jocelyn, what about yourself?
Play wild.
Lots of wild. Yep.
Align those stars. line them. Joss, what about you?
You can find me on Twitter and Twitch. I'm at Joss Plays. I'm doing all kinds of shows now. So just go and check out Twitter because that's where I'm telling everybody what I'm up to.
I too have a lot of shows. They're all at amove.tv. I'm Garrett Art on Twitter. I'll promote my solo show. R2T2 is R2-T2, wherever podcasts can be found. I've been doing WoW lore lately. I just talked about Bonsomdi because I realized I know nothing about the Loa, and I wanted to learn about the Loa. And I was like, if I'm going to read about it anyway, I might as well do a podcast on it. So go listen to that. So enjoy it. Bonsomdi is a badass and the runaway star of Battle for Azeroth. Check that out wherever podcasts can be found. That's going to wrap it up. Thank you again for tuning in. Until next week, job's done.
Job's done.
Job's done.
Yes. I'll see you guys next Y.
Yeah.
I thought he said next wipe. I was like,
next
what
Y.
are you up
To
to
all
right now?
my listeners on the toilet. See you next week.
It's a good place to listen to a podcast, not gonna lie.
Is it? I don't like the idea of other people talking in earshot when I'm trying to,
Yeah? You don't like to have a little company?
Oh man, I just had.
I just live alone with a dog, so my door's always open. It's like I have company every time. You know?
Oh, and they just stare at you, so you get real used to going.
He comes in there and he does a little head cock to the side. He's like, "What you doing, man?"
What are you up to?
You just described every experience I've ever had at a public restroom at BlizzCon. Someone always comes in, looks at me, cocks their head to the side.
Well, when he does his business, he always looks at me too, because that's a dog thing. Where
Well, they're looking at you like, is it?
It's because apparently it's like a vulnerable position, right?
Yeah, apparently it's a sign of
Look
trust.
at you to make sure you're watching their back. Yeah.
Like you got my back. I gotta go.
Yeah.
I gotta go. Make sure nothing eats me.
All right. I'm out. I gotta take this dog. Speaking of, I gotta take this dog for a walk. Good show. I'll see you guys soon.
Thank you all for tuning in. You've been great, chat room. See you later. Thank you for calling us all hot, Emmy.